This story is about innovation. We can't predict exactly how much of the $1.3 trillion in financing will be generated through innovation, but we do know that we won't succeed without it. We need innovation in financial instruments across public and private capital. Financing nature is a very good example where vast financial innovation is needed. There is overwhelming evidence that biodiversity is very connected to climate outcomes. Nature is critical for mitigating climate change, sustaining biodiversity, cleaning our air and water, and helping us adapt to climate impacts. Some estimate 55% of global GDP depends on nature. For example, food, medical advances, and clean water all depend on high-functioning biodiversity. However, it has been very difficult to finance the protection of nature, and we're losing it quickly. According to the Global Forest Watch, tropical primary forest loss in 2023 was 3.7 million hectares, equivalent to losing 10 football fields per minute. The current economic incentive is to chop down forest and overfish the ocean. It is incredibly difficult to finance nature because we have failed to put an economic value on all the services ecosystems provide. Brazil has come up with one innovative initiative to scale up nature finance. Let's go to Sao Paulo, where Mirela Sandrini can tell us more.
How do you put a price on nature? The whole world needs to protect its forests, the oceans, and its habitats. But how do you make nature finance work? Here in Brazil, we know our tropical forests bring global benefits like absorbing carbon, preserving biodiversity, and regulating rain patterns. But they are also a local economic resources, and there is money to be made from extractive uses like logging, mining, or farming cleared land. The question is, how can the world pay so the forests here are protected, not exploited? One innovative idea here in Brazil might have found a way to meet the challenge: the Tropical Forest Forever Facility, or TFFF, aims at paying out the predictable annual figure of around $4 for every hectare of a preserved tropical forest, year after year. The idea, initiated by the Brazilian government and the World Bank, is that rich countries and philanthropies initially invested $25 billion. This then brings in a further $100 billion from private investors, making the biggest single pot of money aimed at fighting climate change and biodiversity loss. Once invested, this money would provide the returns for those predictable payments for intact tropical forest. There would also be a penalty of $400 for any hectare that is lost, all verified by satellite. The key things with the TFFF is that none of the money from rich countries, philanthropies, or private investors is donation. It would be returned after 20 years with interest slightly higher than government bonds. That makes this a new and innovative way to raise finance for nature. And it would make a real difference to protecting our forest. There is still a lot to do to get the TFFF up and running. This is a vital year to see if the financing, the monitoring, and the governance can be sorted out in the run-up to the Belém COP30. And that's why this is part of WRI's Stories to Watch for 2025.
That was Mirela Sandrini, who leads WRI Brazil. So there's a long way to go with TFFF. But if it does work, then it could change the way we're able to provide finance for forest. The key word is ambition, being able to mobilize enough money to make a difference and protect nature at the level we need. There won't be a silver bullet that solves nature finance. We need further innovations, better policies, standards, and regulations, as well as high-quality carbon and biodiversity markets. There's a place for innovations such as natural capital asset companies, land banks, as well as more traditional blended finance. So, what should we watch for this year? First, as Mirela said, there is a lot to make TFFF work. In 2025, we'll be watching for progress. Will the Brazilian government be able to assemble the finance to get it started? And will this draw in private capital? In addition, last October, world leaders met in Cali, Colombia, for the COP16 Biodiversity Conference to find ways to save and restore nature. But they walked away without a financial deal. Will leaders strike an ambitious nature finance deal when COP16 talks resume in Rome in February? In particular, we're watching to see how they bring together biodiversity and climate finance. Carbon markets have existed for some time, but they have yet to meet their full potential. When the voluntary carbon market was at all-time high of about $2 billion per year in 2021, many thought it would grow at least $10 billion by 2030. But the markets have fallen significantly, and such growth now seems unlikely. High-integrity, high-value carbon markets can still play an important role in financing nature. Will new integrity standards and increasing signals from government boost investor confidence in carbon markets? Will debt for nature swaps become a growing trend? Barbados recently used guarantees from MDBs to reduce its debt payments in return for conservation investments. Ecuador is using one of these to help conserve Galapagos National Park, committing to spend $18 million annually over 20 years. Will we see a more systemic approach to debt restructuring and relief to support nature and climate investment at scale? Finally, will there be reforms of subsidy regimes? More than $635 billion is spent on agricultural subsidy annually, placing immense pressure on natural ecosystems worldwide. As COP16's discussion resumes, countries are calling for the redirection of at least $500 billion in subsidies harmful to biodiversity. Denmark approved a new policy in 2024 aiming to better balance agriculture and nature. And the UK is starting to reconfigure agricultural subsidy to pay farmers for ecosystem services. Will other countries follow? It's not only imperative that climate and nature finance work together, but it's an opportunity to innovate our approach and find new pathways of financing nature.